Okay, we'll move right into the superintendent's report. Mr. Brooks.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. I just have a few items quickly. Now that we're fully into the school year, past our first month jitters, fire drills and lockdown drills are starting to happen in the schools, so we're starting to get our youngsters used to that evacuation process, and we're working with our safety teams so that those go as smoothly as possible and prepare our students in the event that there might be any kind of an emergency. Also want to let the board know that we're preparing for next board meeting 2 weeks from today for a financial presentation. Mr. Witherow and our auditor, Ray Pruser, will be here talking about our financial position, getting some information to the board about our position with our our reserve funds. And we'll also be making a presentation regarding a new reserve fund that he will recommend that we create. The Finance Committee has reviewed all these elements, and we're letting the board know that we'll be presenting those at the next board meeting. Also want to give the board an opportunity to make any comment. I know I've had some brief discussions on it, but since September went so quickly, it's time for us to make a decision administratively on graduation day, for graduation date. This year's calendar is one of those odd calendars that come up about every decade where the school year actually ends on a Wednesday. So Wednesday the 26th is the last day of school officially. Graduation on a Wednesday is kind of an odd day for graduation. So administratively through the building at the high school, they've been looking at the structure of Regents exams and when those exams are taking place and which ones have graduation implications and which ones don't. And Mr. Lawler is confident that they can have graduation on Friday the 21st, and any exams that children take that have graduation implications, they can adjust and make those accommodations for Friday the 21st. So unless there's any substantial objection, I think that that flows nicely for families with graduation on Friday the 21st that allows celebrations to happen Saturday or Sunday for many families. So doing it on a Wednesday would either mean graduation is Wednesday the 26th or pushed it to that Friday, which just kind of extends things out a little bit far. So unless there's any major objection, we'd like to set that in our calendar in stone so families can begin to make those plans, because if October through June go as quickly as September did, it'll be here before we know it. So any thoughts on?
The 21st sounds great to me.
Okay.
She's the only one with a graduate on the board, so I was just curious.
I assume all the high schools offer that too, right? Mr.
Yeah,
Waller
the high
and them?
school staff went through the graduation implications. So, yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, no objection here.
Okay. All right.
Sounds good.
So we'll move forward with that, get it on the calendar, and get notice out to families so that they can begin to plan. Thank you.
You'll still be able to do rehearsal on Thursday and the
Yeah.
awards?
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
noticed tests. I didn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Many of those regents at that point in time, for most seniors, are really not part of their repertoire that week anyway. It's
And
just
what-
there's a few kids that are impacted.
And would moving up still be the following Wednesday, that last day?
Haven't gotten that far into the detailed planning of that. This adjustment kind of changes everything. So really having a Wednesday calendar kind of
Well,
messes a little bit of everything. But that's the next step.
moving up's normally Wednesday anyhow, so.
Yeah. And my last piece is that we have a presentation tonight from the Town of Marlborough Town Board, and once we're done with all of our reports, we look forward to that presentation. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Matt, students report.
Thank you everyone for coming out tonight. I'd like to start by thanking the guidance departments at both Marlborough High School and Marlborough Middle School. As you know, September is a very busy time with the add drop period, and those departments make very conscious efforts to meet with all students and meet their schedule needs. Moving on to some events at Marlborough High School last night, they had a financial aid night, which I didn't personally attend, but I know it was out of great attendance, and And it was a good event for students because obviously this time is the college process, and it provided some good information on the FAFSA and other things. Tomorrow, progress report ends. It's kind of crazy if you think about it. We're already in 8th through the school year. Like, if we just started, this is only my second meeting, and we're already in 8th through, which is pretty crazy. Looking in ahead, we got October 9th through the 12th next week at Marlboro High School is Spirit Week, so that's some good school spirit we'll be seeing next week. And then October 13th, we have the PSAT administration. And looking a little bit down the road, October 22nd, the PTSA is sponsoring a pumpkin run, so like a 5K to raise money. Moving on to Marlboro Middle School, I was talking with Mr. Stanmeyer, and I saw some really great things last week. They had a Start with Hello Week, which I thought was a really great program, just getting students to like treat each other kindly and start by saying hello. It's amazing how in today's day and age, like, that's simple, like, pleasantries are just lost. And also this past Monday, October 1st, students wore blue for International Stomp Out Bullying Day, another great initiative. Looking ahead, October 3rd is Red Ribbon Week down there. So Red Ribbon Week is big in staying drug-free. And October 26th is the Halloween dance, so they're looking for chaperones. If anybody's interested, they're always looking for chaperones. Moving on to the Marlboro Elementary School, on September 27th and September 28th, the PTA recognized some students with Readers Are Leaders Award. And as most teachers, there's plenty of them out there, it cannot be stressed the importance enough of reading throughout the summer. That summer, like, malaise is detrimental, so it's great that we have a way to recognize these students. And looking ahead at Marlboro Elementary School, Fire Prevention Week next week, and ENL Family Fun Night is October 18th. All right, so for those who weren't here, last meeting 2 weeks ago, I mentioned I sent out a survey to Marlboro High School and Marlboro Middle School students. So today I have some of the results from that survey. And so overall I got just shy of 200 responses, which it was, that's a decent chunk. I'd say that's about a fifth or so. And so I started it off, so some answers that I got, I started it off by saying, like, a scale of 1 to 5, rate your experience as a student in the school. So the average answer was a 4, which I thought was pretty good. And about 60% of respondents labeled their experience as a 4 or 5, with 5 being the greatest. And less than 4% rated it a 1 or a 2. So I thought that was excellent. The next question was a yes or no. Does Marlboro Central School District do enough to get students, like, involved in decisions that directly affect them? I got 53% no and 47% yes. So after those two questions, I kind of opened it up to some open-ended questions about issues and things they wanted to see. So one thing that was mentioned that I mentioned in a question was safety, which is a very big issue. Obviously, we've had major catastrophic events in the past year, but safety at Marlboro schools polled very well. A lot of students said they felt safe and secure in these buildings, which I thought was very important, and it's a very good job on our part. One thing that was a major issue that came up was the class officer system and representation in the student senate. So in most schools, in the Marlboro Middle School and the Marlboro High School, there's classes elect a president, a vice president, a secretary, a treasurer, so on and so forth. But students kind of said these positions were more popularity-based than merit-based, and they didn't necessarily think it was a diverse enough group to represent the school on issues. And it's, in some ways I agree with that, because it's a lot of the same people running for positions, and it's not giving enough, like, diversity into that we need. So to counter that, Mr. Lawler and I are putting together a volunteer-based panel of students to meet monthly and discuss certain issues and allow students a voice who maybe don't have the backing to win those elections, to let their voices be heard. So an announcement, I was in the process of recording it for the daily announcement. That should be going out soon, and hopefully by next meeting we should have a group together. Another thing that was mentioned was a desire for extracurricular activities outside of sports and drama club, which, you know, there wasn't a lot of specifics on that, but one thing that came up was an art club. So again, Mr. Lawler and I were talking with different art teachers and such, and we're trying to put somewhat of an art club into action. So that was basically the results of the survey. And then I only have one more thing to say. There have been some cases early in this school year of the Coxsackie virus, which is more commonly known as hand, foot, mouth disease going around. I know I've at least like 2 or 3 cases around Marlboro High School. It's kind of typically a young child disease, but more recently in the news in our area, it's kind of been spreading around schools, the city, and moving upwards. So some early symptoms include like an initial sore throat and a fever, which is followed by like these blister, cold sore-like lesions around the mouth, the hands, and the feet. So I think it's something we should keep an eye on. It's a pretty contagious virus. It can spread rather rapidly. So it's always important to emphasize good hygiene, wash hands, and also something we should monitor in case it gets, there's more cases. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Orange County School Boards, John, did they have a meeting?
Mostly right now, there's a lot of planning going for the next meeting, which is November 7th, in which the meeting's going to be held at Middletown High School. Middletown's got some grants, and they have a lot of technology advancement in the STEM field. And there's going to be 10 Orange County schools that are going to present what they're doing in the STEM part of education. And if anybody on the board would like to go with me to see what they're doing, to see if anything that, we can bring back here, anyone's invited, just have to let me know. So November 7th is that meeting in Middletown High School.
Great, thanks. Also, school boards, their first meeting's not until next Thursday, so I'll have a report at the next meeting for that. Back to Mr. Brooks for Student of the Month.
Wonderful. Welcome, students and families. Thank you very much for coming. Why don't we get ourselves started with the high school?
Good evening, Mr. Brooks, Board of Education. Thank you for allowing me to do this. It's always an honor and a pleasure. We have a young man here from the come on, Edward, come on up here, Mr. Bartley, come on. This is Edward Kelly, he's our student of the month. Bartley,
Hi, everybody. Thank you to Superintendent Brooks, board members, and administration for the privilege to present the Marlboro High School Social Studies Department Student of the Month, Ed Kellenbenz. This is my second year having Ed as a student, and it's been a wonderful opportunity getting to teach him. I had him last year in sociology, and he's now in public affairs and macroeconomics as a senior. I've learned a lot about Ed's character in that time, and also Ed's unyielding drive to learn. He's the type of young man who comes to class early and stays late, and always has follow-up questions that are seeking deeper knowledge. Knowing Ed for so long, I knew other teachers would have stories to share, so I asked a couple other teachers what they thought of Ed. Mr. DeMarco, our astronomy teacher, wanted to thank Ed for being an essential part of getting our new telescope working in the observatory high atop the roof of Marlboro High School. Ed has shown a great interest last year while taking college astronomy class and continues to give up large amounts of his personal time to come back to the school in the late evenings. Ed has been instrumental in figuring out the complex operations of the new telescope computers and has enjoyed some astrophotography as well. I also reached out to his AP English teacher from last year, Mr. DeLeo. He wanted to add that it was a great pleasure to have Ed in his AP Language and Composition course last year, that Ed was always astute, reliable, and brave. He did not fear to chance an answer, and he was eager to hear the thoughts of others. Additionally, Ed's fondness for the pleasure of analog, his appreciation for and the use of a typewriter made him stand out as a unique individual with his own ideas and a deep understanding of how to process the world around him. I think all of Ed's teachers would agree that we all look forward to seeing the great things that he will accomplish in the future. Congratulations, Ed. Ed.
Mrs. Walsh will jump down to the elementary school.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Good evening, everyone. Mrs. Kaplan and I are thrilled to introduce our Marlboro Elementary School Student of the Month for September, and that is Ivan Menendez. He is a fourth grader. Ivan's team of teachers are going to speak on his behalf. We have Mrs. Guerrero, Ms. Taddeo, Mr. McInerney. Mrs. Logue, I think you need to come up here. We do. Everyone's up here. So we are excited to tell you about Ivan.
All right, so I have the pleasure of being Ivan's homeroom teacher, which means he spends the most time with me. We started fourth grade with a quote that we kind of took in and really dove into, which went something like, there's kids that are going to be cooler than you, there's kids that are going to have better clothes than you, there's kids that are going to be better at sports or have better grades, but at the end of the day, we just want you to do the right thing and be the nice kid. And Ivan shows that again and again. But not only is he nice, the N obviously stands for nice, but I, intelligent, C, compassionate, and E, I could go on with excellence, effort, empathy. He is an excellent kid who knows the right thing to do and always does it. He has brought us, I think, at least 10 extra credit projects already. We have displayed around my room, whether history, science, just really pushing himself to be his best. And in a fourth grader, that's really important to us. So we really admire him, and we adore Ivan.
Hi, everybody. I have the pleasure of having Ivan for Science and Social Studies. And what first impressed me from the first day of school was that he was so overly enthusiastic to learn. Every day, he has showed up consistently with a smile on his face. He's first on the carpet to be ready for whatever we are doing that day. And I really think that enthusiasm is going to take him many great places in his academic future. So congratulations.
And I'm Ivan's math teacher, and I felt like we had a tough task at the beginning of the year, choosing a student of the month so early in the year. On the first day of school, it seems like everybody could be a good candidate. And then by day 3, you maybe narrow that by 50%. And eventually, we narrowed it down to just Ivan. And some of the qualities that make him such a great candidate are that he is extremely attentive. He's always on task. His hand is always up to answer questions and always volunteering to go to the smart board to answer questions and show his classmates what he can do. He's also a great partner. I partner my kids up for work a lot of times, and he's not only concerned with getting his own work done, but that his partner is also on task and knows how to complete the skills that we're practicing. So again, those are just some of the qualities that make him a great candidate for Student of the Month.
you?
want you to block me. How do you have to go down? I don't want to be at the mic. What? I'm in a good spot. Liza, stop, back in the party. Thank you.
Mr. Stanmeyer will bring the middle school up, please.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks, the Board of Ed. You always keep us guessing with what school you might call next, so appreciate that. Keep us on our toes. So our student tonight truly is, what we say when we talk about the reason why we go into what we do when we come in and work with schools and with kids. I was fortunate enough today to take a walk with our student around the track during recess and chat with her a little bit and just get a sense of her, sense of calm, kindness, measurement. And she's a wonderful young lady. So at this point, Leoa Chambers, please come up with Mrs. Raquel Piazza, who will speak on your behalf. Leo, again, congratulations. Well done.
When I first met Leoa, I was struck by her unique way of thinking and interacting with the world around her. I would ask her how she was doing, and she would respond, "Great." She always brings a positive attitude and a story to share. Leoa made huge gains last year in her reading and writing and continued her hard work over the summer. On the first day of school, she came to class equipped with a one-page summary of her summer reading to hand in, and she hadn't been asked to write anything. Leoa is kind and quiet, but not afraid to share her opinions. One day we were walking down the hall, chatting about how the school should examine their lunches for harmful ingredients. She said we should tell Mrs. Clinton, and I agreed that at some point we should, let the administration know about our concerns. Who should we see at that moment but Mrs. Clinton? Leoa marched right up to her and let her know what we need to be watching out for in our future purchases. I was more nervous than she was. Leoa always finds a way to connect personally to the work we're doing in the classroom. She is eager to share about her family and connects the lessons she learns in life to our classroom discussions, spreading her wisdom to others. She always offers the support of her experiences when she sees a need. Like when the 6th grade students were late on the first day, and she said, "Let me tell you about hall sweeps." It's a pleasure to have Leoa in my classroom every day, offering her insights and eager to apply her new knowledge. I have learned not to underestimate her, and I look forward to seeing what direction she goes in life. Wherever she goes, I am certain she will continue standing up for what is right and sharing her beliefs with those around her. If anyone is deserving of this award, it's Leoa.
Cheers this time. I was going to say something, but I didn't want to jinx you. So.
Okay, now we're going to move on to presentation from the town of Marlborough on a proposed recreation community center.
So before we start, thank you very much for your time, Superintendent Brooks. Thank you, Board of Education. We appreciate this time. I kind of like this meeting. It's a pretty happy meeting, so it's very joyful. And congratulations to all the students and the teachers. We really appreciate that. So we're in front of the board. We're kind of looking to show the board what we are planning. And before we have our engineer, Phil Bell, come up to address the board, I'd like to have Scott Corcoran come up and give an overview of what we're actually talking about here. So Scott, Councilman Corcoran, is right behind me. I'd like to present this award to you. Let's take a picture.
Take a picture, take a picture. Thank you guys for having us here. Thank you, Superintendent Brooks and President Milazzo and the board for having us here. I just want to give you a quick update of where we are at because there's been a lot of talk and a lot of background. And before Phil, our engineer, comes up here and gives you some of our photos and what we're talking about, I just want to give you where we're at and why we're at this point. We got to this point because the board has been looking to upgrade the community room for our senior citizens. That's how it started. Presently, they're at the Presbyterian Church. I don't know if you guys are aware where that is, but it's fairly old. It's in the basement. It's not the greatest facility, but it's a doable facility. So we've been looking for a spot to see can we do this. We also are looking at possible recreation. Through the community, we've been having a lot of recreational activities. Presently are being held at Tomback, as people know. That facility, we believe, the majority of the board believes that it's not suitable for that and that we want to see if we could make a better facility for that too. So we've been looking around the town and we want to pick a spot that is a non-taxable entity piece of property. Nothing that's on the tax rolls. We don't want to take anything off the tax rolls. So we looked at our parks. We looked at our facilities. A lot of it wasn't suitable because we're trying to find a facility or a piece of property for the seniors where there's no 9W traffic, there's no intersections, it's a fairly in and out, easy access. So we had talked to Superintendent Brooks about this. Was there any possibility of utilizing any of the unused school properties? And the one property that we were looking at was the property up at the high school that I believe you purchased, I'm not sure when it was, back in the day, for possibly a building for the town. I mean, for the school district administrative offices at the time. But it hasn't been used. So I think you have about 6.5 acres there, if we're accurate, something like that. We're looking to probably utilize about 2.5 acres if possible. That's what our engineer is going to explain to you. Again, it's going to be a half community center, half recreational center with the basement. The top center is about 4,000 square feet of each. One for the rec center, which is about the size of this room. If anybody wants to understand what that is, it's about the size of this room. And then the community center is about the same size, but it has a full kitchen, bathrooms. The basement's another 4,000 square feet. That's where we were trying to work with you too to give you some access to bathrooms, because I know I go to many baseball and softball games up in that area, and there's no bathrooms. You have to walk all the way back to the school. So there would be 2 bathrooms downstairs, 1 men, 1 women. There would be a concession stand, if need be, by the school, or you could use it for storage. And there's plenty of storage down there that we desperately need, and if possibly you could need. And then there's expansion of parking, because I know, again, I go to many games there, and there's nowhere to park. People are parked all over across the road, and it's not a good situation. So there's expansion of parking on the bottom and expansion of parking on the top. So having said all that, we're asking to possibly set up, if you guys are interested, a joint committee between boards, maybe a couple of members from your board, a couple of members from our board, and we could actually sit down and go through the details more in detail after you get this presentation if you like. So we would be asking after this probably a letter to the superintendent and to your board that if we could set that up and maybe go further. So having said that, I want to introduce Phil Bell from Bell Engineering and Design. He's the gentleman that we would be working with. He's also the gentleman that did all of our work in this building, when we moved here, and I'm not going to talk anymore. I'm going to give it to Phil. So, there you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, school board, for having me, and the town board, and members of the community. I want to start out, Mike, let's jump right into this. We'll start out with the concept area view, and it'll let everybody know exactly where we're putting the building and what the concept was. One of the things in the discussions we had about where the best place to put this building was the interaction between the school and the town community. So what we're doing here is putting the building and that adjacent lot, which also serves, there you go, dual purpose here. So what we're going to do, and I'll just step off, I think everybody can still hear me.
Yeah, please take the microphone with you, though, so that those that are going to watch the recording can hear you. Thank you.
There you go. Okay, so what the plan here is, this is the overview. This is where the project is going to sit with relationship to the school and the fields. On the left-hand side is the community center, and on the right-hand side will be the gymnasium. This will be the new parking lot. What we've done is some cost-cutting measures as we've have overflow parking around the outside, which would just be either grass or gravel. This area back here is our sewer treatment area, and these round areas here are the storm ponds that are required by the New York State DEC. I didn't show any expansion here, but this is the area here of the parking lot. We're going to expand it, probably widen it a little and lengthen it a little, so we have, between the two lots, we'll have plenty of parking. Mike, if you want to go to the site plan, concept site plan. Yep. It's just a little larger view of the area with some detail there. Okay, so we have entrance, basically the left-hand side here, the community center side, this side here, is 2 stories, and that's a basement that walks out, and that's your sidewalk entrance from that lot. And then, of course, we have an entrance with a drop-off area, and everything's labeled on this plan showing what we're doing, the entranceway, drop-off area for the seniors. We're making sure that it's right close to the entrance of the building. And then, of course, we have the handicap ramp that wraps around down to the lower level. This is a hillside here. So what we're going to have is we're going to have a 2-story here, and then the right side will be the gymnasium. As a cost-cutting measure, what we're going to do is we're going to do wood frame construction on the community center side, and almost a separate building, but it will be attached. This will be a metal building, pre-engineered metal building for the gymnasium. So Mike, if we can go to the elevations, we'll give everybody an idea of what the building's going to look like. Okay, so that's going to be the community center. This is the angle from the street on that side as you walk in. This is the large metal building, totally open, 1 room. We have a couple small rooms inside. We'll show you those on the floor plan. And this is the side facing the school. So what we have is on the first floor is the community center and the large room, and then on the basement, we have the basements down here. We're going to set up with some concessions in case anybody wants to run concessions. These 2 doors will be the bathrooms that directly service. And then if you're in the community room, you have a nice view of the school. We're going to put windows all the way across, so it's a big, bright room. And you also actually be able to watch the games if you want to from the community center. This is a large access door, primarily used for bringing stuff in, equipment in and stuff like that. Essentially, this is our main entrance. This is all one big open space gymnasium like this. We're going to do a gable ceiling, and the interior is going to look similar to this because we're going to have the exposed ventilation HVAC system, similar to this, and the exposed lights, exposed beams. That cuts our costs way down, and we'll have to do insulation and stuff like that within the beams and within the walls, but that keeps our costs down. So, Mike, if you want to move to the floor plan. And this is essentially what the layout's going to look like. Okay, so what we have here is this is the first floor, and this is the basement. So over on the first floor, you can see the large gymnasium, single room, where in order to minimize or maximize our space, we're actually taking, yes, this is, no, that's good. We're actually taking, we're concerned about the size of the building, so we're keeping our costs down. And what we're doing is we're going to put the office for the entranceway. You always want to have some type of introduction, you know, receptionist here when you walk in for people who are using these spaces. And so the office is going to service the foyer from actually the gymnasium side. And then we put a storage building in here. The large gym area is actually large enough for, I think it'll be 3/4 court basketball. Again, it'll be about this big. Similar to this idea, but smaller with the rooms built into the gym. And we'll set it up for all kinds of use. You could do indoor soccer, volleyball, basketball, whatever kind of activities you want to do. And then on the other side, on the far side, that's essentially your community center. That left side, that's going to be all wood frame construction. That's going to be a large, I think the dimensions 54 by 40 foot room of service, at least 100 people. What we have is bathrooms upstairs to service the first floor, and foyer, full commercial kitchen, and then plenty of storage space. We had a lot of discussions to make sure we had plenty of room for storage, both for its use and then downstairs for the school district and for the town. So how the downstairs is working, so this is the basement level over here. How the downstairs is working is it's facing the fields. You have interior and exterior entrances to the bathrooms. I think I missed a door here. Interior and, oh no, we did that on purpose. We have exterior only. Since we have interior bathrooms, we could always do entrance from the backside if we wanted to. That's to service the fields. And then we have a concession stand. Now this is not a full kitchen. It's more of an electronic kitchen. So I have, like, you know, heated hot dogs, hot plates, and you know, nachos and stuff like that. It's more of an electronic type kitchen, electric heating. Will not have a full ventilation system and hood. And it's basically 2 bay windows to service. And then you can see we have a large storage area. That was part of this whole project. We wanted to make sure that it worked for both the board, the school board, and the town. And the school was interested both in some services on this side, and the school is also interested in some storage. Some of the things we're doing to cut down the costs is, this is obviously a basement, so this is all concrete walls. We're going to leave the concrete walls exposed. This will all be wood frame construction. The front face will be wood frame construction. And then the left side there will be all wood frame construction, trussed. And then this will be a pre-engineered steel building. The foundations will all work together, it'll be one giant foundation, but we essentially have 2 forms of construction to keep our costs down. The pre-engineered buildings are excellent, cost-effective means. You basically order up the building, everything's set. I'll have to do the foundation design, verify all the plans, make sure everything's correct, accessible, and deliverable. And it really cuts down the cost, is doing a full design. The wood frame is standard. This will be on top of the wood frame. That's your first floor. This is the basement. On top of the wood frame will be a standard truss, wood truss, sloped away from the building. We're going to do a 6-foot overhang out on that end. So if you're standing down here, you're actually protected if it's raining. If you're in line for the bathrooms or if you're in line for concessions, we'll have a large overhang that comes down over that. What we're also doing in the floors is we're not going to do standard solid joists. We're going to do wood truss joists. They're typically 18 inches deep. What these joists do is they allow you to run utilities, both your HVAC, electric, plumbing, through the floor joists at a much easier and cost-effective manner. Basement level will be only 8 feet. We're not going to dig down too deep. That'll keep our costs down. And then our first floor level over on the community side, we're looking at 9 or 10 feet, so it'll be a nice high ceiling when you're in that community room. And then your gym will be 20 plus feet. It'll be very similar to this. I think this is sitting right at around 20 feet or 22 feet. What we'll have a little different is we're going to do a gable ceiling. That was the look we want. Mike, if we can go back to the elevations. Okay, so we're going to do a standard right now, and all this is up for, obviously, final design, interpretation, suggestions. You have vertical seam siding with a nice a rock lower area there that, you know, defines, gives a little definition to the building. And then the roof line is going to be standing seam. That's a really nice look, and it's long-lasting, very effective. Again, we've got the nice windows overlooking the fields. We've got access to concessions, restrooms on the lower side, entrances here, and then we have emergency exits around the outside of the building. So that's pretty much our concept at this point. That's what we're looking to move forward to. There was definitely a lot of discussions about how we can make this work both just within the community, so it works for everybody. Anybody can use it. We opened it up to recreation, so we didn't just do a community center. So now if anybody wants indoor recreation throughout the winter or larger events, presentations, meetings, it can be used for that. And the important part too was to provide services for the school district, school board, and then the nice windows there that overlook the fields. And that's pretty much the concept as it stands now. Again, we're always looking for, you know, input to make this work, you know, better for the whole community. If anybody has any questions.
Is there a cost estimate that takes into account your septic and your site prep and the buildings?
Yeah, right now the cost estimate is sitting just under $2 million, about $1.9 million. I use that number, tried to include everything. I include the parking lot construction. Our target was to keep it under 2. What we did, that was some of the cost-effective measures we did to reduce the size of the parking. We actually kept the community side of the building small. This will need to remain a gymnasium. It will not be designed for assembly, okay? You could use it on occasion, but basically it's not designed for assembly. That would kick in the need for sprinkler system. The community side was set up to be a reasonable side, which keeps us under sprinkler systems as well. So we won't need a sprinkler system on this building. Again, this is all wood frame, wood truss, steel building. I took into account the sanitary system, the parking lot, the grading, the stormwater detention, which is always more of a cost than people realize nowadays, and then the building construction and excavation. So we did our best to keep this under the 2 million target. The combination of the two, again, the wood frame and the steel building really goes a long way. And then semi-finishing the basement, keeping the basement minimalistic there with not a full kitchen, and the restrooms in the basement as well, keeps the cost down, and we were able to keep that. What we feel is under 2 million. Very hard to project costs or estimate costs. A lot has to do with the timing of the construction, what are materials doing, and then of course when you deal with capital improvement projects, you're dealing with a higher cost of construction.
Let me just add to that.
Go ahead.
That price does also include the engineering costs, construction costs, all that type of work, planning costs. One thing is we are possibly getting grant money for this project. We know we have some money secured possibly right now through the late Frank Scartados. We have about $250,000 available for this project if we can utilize it here. But I just wanted to make you sure that all these costs are for everything from soup to nuts. So like if we can get our highway department, say, our areas to do some of this work, like the construction of the stormwater, the foundation, all the kind of stuff that we have the heavy machinery to do, obviously could that bring our costs down. Our goal here is not to tax the taxpayer as much as possible, right? We want to try to keep this net neutral through our budget and through funding and through if we have to bond, and then making that bond money up through our budget cuts if we have to. So this is not a project, I want to make sure the public understands, this is not a project that we want to put out to the public and say we're going to spend $1.9 million and we're going to tax you more money. That's not our goal. That's definitely not my goal, and I know it's not the board's goal. The goal is to try to work together with the school district in the most economic way that we can do, that we could benefit the taxpayers of the town. So, having said that, we're going to try our best to keep the cost down as best we can, and that would be working with you as best we can to keep the cost down too, if you so choose to. Again, this is strictly on you. Now, if you guys decide you don't want anything to do with this project, then we'll have to look at another spot if we can. This also, I just want to make clear, there's been some comments in the papers about this being tied to the Tomback sale. This has nothing to do with the Tomback sale. The Tomback sale is a totally separate entity to this project. If the Tomback sale was not sold, the majority of the board is still looking at doing this project. It doesn't have anything to do with that project, so I want to make that clear. Now, if that does sell, that money does come available again to be put in our building fund for this project. So that is a revenue source. So just want to make that clear. So.
Okay, so I think we'll open it up to questions from the board at this time. Whoever wants to.
I have a few questions. So when you're speaking about the community room and the gymnasium, do you have an actual captured audience of underserved customer base, if you will, that is not already being served by existing facilities within our school and the town?
For this is the community room, Sue? Or the rec room?
The whole thing.
So the community room, definitely. Community room, I would say on average, 5 people come in at least a week to ask, do we have a facility to rent, which we currently do not. We have just opened up the train station a little. It's not as big as a venue. It doesn't have the kitchen or anything like that. It's just you have to bring your own stuff. So currently, yes, there's definitely, I could tell you this will be rented out quite a bit. The recreational side, we've had a lot of interest since this building has been now not utilized for what it was. Some of it was being utilized for volleyball and different activities back then. Some of that was made up through the school usage, but we definitely have a use because we have taekwondo going on, we have Zumba going on, we have Fit Club going on right now. We like to expand that. That's part of what we're trying to do. We're trying to expand our recreational activities that we can offer throughout the town. So I believe, yes, we do have a need for it. So that's my opinion.
Also, too, you said that you had looked at the town park as well as Tomback?
We looked at everything, yes. Tomback, we took off we early on did not consider Tomback as a suitable place, mainly for the 9W corridor and the traffic that it has on it, and that we don't want the seniors to have to make that turn in and out of that lane, especially when they turn out and they have to go southbound across the lane. I went down, we talked to the seniors, and they were asking for another flagman out there during the middle of the day, having someone stop the traffic in the middle of 9W, which that's a 55-mile-an-hour zone. It's not like by the school where it's, they're already down to 30 miles an hour. You can't just throw somebody out there. So we kind of took that off the plate because of that reason. And secondly, the town board had passed a business corridor zone along the 9W corridor, as you guys probably know. And what we're trying to do is attract businesses into the town, which helps us and it helps you, right? Any business that we bring into this town that wasn't a business prior is 100% tax dollars to you guys and to us and to the county. That property Tomback was never, ever been on the tax rolls. So whatever dollars we get out of it is dollars for the school district, dollars for us. It's jobs for the community. Those people that work at those jobs spend money within our town. They go to the delis, they go to different establishments to buy things, and they might even live here. So our directors is to bring that into this. So that came off the plate. The park definitely was a high consideration. It's just that how the park's laid out right now with the pond in the middle, and we can't do anything with the pond. The pond is there. We can't fill it. We can't do anything with it. And the way that everything else is being used there with the ball fields, the soccer fields, the pavilion, there's really not a suitable spot to put it at this point.
How much acreage is there that's not being used?
What is there about?
Setting the pond aside.
The wooded area? There's a lot of...
Well, I guess the question is, when you talk about the 9W corridor, You just finished a study, and
Not yet.
there's a
Not yet.
Well, but we've got a report about the 9W corridor and the proposed changes that it would seem like those, if instituted, would address some of those concerns of access to either to the park or to the Tomback property, and would keep, because I'm not sure how the neighbors that currently have a buffer between our fields and now putting a building up next between their homes and that, and putting more traffic on that road, you know, how that's going to be seen. So that's, I'm just trying to understand, you know, we've spent, obviously it was money and grant to do this study to really try and improve 9W, slow it down, go down to 2 lanes pretty much the whole way instead of 4 and 2, and really make it accessible. But this would seem contrary to that.
I would say, Frank, that that study was almost completed, but then the DOT asked for more data. And so we went back to the individual that won the study, and so they're working on that and talking to the Dennis Doyle and Brian Slack at the county that they're almost done with that study. But I'd like to make something clear also that I think Councilman Corcoran stated. These are 2 separate things, the Tomback and the Recreation Center. As you know, and it's been illustrated, me and Mr. Baker we were never in favor of selling the Tomback building. But this is a different thing. This is a recreation. This is, in December 4th, the people of the town of Marlborough have a chance to vote to sell it or not sell it. So it's up to the people now. On December 4th, we have a referendum that will be there, that it will be a special election. It will be at the 2 polling places where the people of Marlborough would have a chance to voice their opinion. So, so I want to be clear about that one thing. The other thing is that we all love this. I mean, what's not to love about it? It's great for the community. As Mr. Corcoran stated, it's the money issue. We're talking about $2 million. You're talking about if we do sell Tomback, if the people of Marlborough choose to sell it, it's around $380, but probably we get about $350 after everything is well done. Would you agree? And then $250 from Frank Scartato's money gives us about $600,000. That's a pretty good start, but it's far from the close to $2 million. And as Mr. Bell said, there's things that pop up sometimes. So I'm thinking contingency, if you put 10%, maybe it's 2.1, 2.10. I could be wrong, and it could be less. So we don't know where to go. But the whole idea about meeting with the board here is to get your feeling, and please keep on answering.
Yeah, I think along that lines, and I think I can speak for everybody, that, you know, nobody's opposed to having the discussion, but I think the board as a whole, because we're in a complicated position because this isn't, the property doesn't belong to just the people of the town of Marlborough. And the board as a whole, you know, it's 3 different towns, 2 different counties. The board as a whole wouldn't be making a decision on a legal way of how we would even do something with the property. So the earliest we could do anything and have, you know, we can work on discussions and everything, but the earliest anything could happen would be a vote to the voters of our district next year.
It would have to be a permissible referendum, right? And then, yeah, we know all that.
Yeah, but we wouldn't, I'm saying the board wouldn't support one way or the other. We wouldn't require the voters to go out and get signatures to come. We would pose this as part of the election next year to the voters to decide, so that we can find out where they stand before we'd be looking to give, loan, transfer, however legally it could even be done.
We understand that.
Yeah, okay.
We know that. We know that.
And the other question is, you're not talking about trying to bring septic up that way? Because I know we already have issues.
We are not, sir.
And
that it's an extremely costly thing to the town. We like these beautiful member items that we get from Senator Larkin and our beloved Frank Scartato to pass That's what helps the town with its tax base. So recently, as you see in Marlboro, there's sidewalks being put in. That's from a memorandum from Frank Scartatos. And the 9W sewer along 9W, that's from Mr. Scartatos and Senator Larkin. That's $500,000. So we've been blessed, the town of Marlboro, to have two great men that really support this community. As you well know, when you had the crisis with the monies when Dan Scammer and Roston.
Yeah, no, we're just concerned, the other big thing is septic in that area.
And we
And you're
understand
talking
about-
about pumping, you're talking about pumping septic from a basement up to a septic field.
We are considering, because of the water situation, that we might put a line there, so this way we have a complete circuit there, so this way if we had to shut water down, it wouldn't affect the school, and that's one of the things the town board's looking at it. But then again, you're talking about money.
John?
I have a couple of questions. From a school board perspective, I look at this design and there's lots of considerations for what the school would use or want, but who's been involved from the school to determine if any of those requirements are even needed, like the storage, like the concession, like the parking, like, you know, and the gymnasium? We obviously don't need a gymnasium. We have 4 of them in the school that we lend out for the community as well. But more to the question is, was somebody from the school system involved in even determining whether we need this stuff? It's nice to have, like everybody likes to have, but for $2 million, do we need it or don't we? Has anybody been involved from our district in the design?
John, that's why we're here.
Early on, we had some very, very preliminary discussions. Some of those drawings I had asked Supervisor Lanzetta a while back to put something on a piece of paper to provide for fuel for us to have discussion, but there were never any discussions of specifics. It was, tonight's it. Tonight's the...
Yeah, okay. So why I bring that up is kind of...
The only discussion we had, John, myself, Councilman Corcoran, is we met with Larry Galaza, and we walked the property, and we just wanted to see the terrain to see if it was actually feasible, and there's a nice flat spot there that the design is built around that flat spot.
And I guess my second point is more of a town of Marlboro taxpayer, not necessarily a school board member or member of the school district. But you continue to separate Tomback and this, but I don't know how you can, because many people in this town are going to bring it back to a cost-benefit analysis of investing money in Tomback to turn it into a rec center, and compared to the $2 million or so that you're doing here. And yes, you brought up some points about Tomback meaning for the seniors and the tax rolls and the corridor, but that's all of, you know, pros and cons of each example, and it's going to come down to money for the town. And so, you know, part of this says nice little extra for the school, but do we really need it? Many folks are going to say the same thing from a town perspective. Are we sure we're using every community room across the library, across the school facilities, across any other buildings, churches, what have you, that are pretty empty? And you got money, grant money, that you could potentially invest in any one of those areas that could bring them up to a better place, if you will, and maybe meet the needs without spending the $2 million. We're not going to solve it here, but I think from my perspective, I'm thinking of it more from the town, you know, citizen of the town, and whether it makes sense, whether it goes in a school property or somewhere else, isn't really. We'll deal with it from a school board perspective, as Frank and others were bringing up. We don't even know how we would do this, but I think the bigger questions are, I don't see how you're going to separate the Tomback discussion with this.
Well, let me answer that a little, John. Because I'll answer it this way. We want to have a better community center for our seniors, that's without a doubt. But if this becomes too cost effective and too burdensome, that wouldn't be cost effective to the taxpayer, because guess what? I'm a taxpayer in this town too. And that's why I wanted to run for this office and be in this spot. I would never actually ask the taxpayers to be burdened like that again, like they were. So if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. And we still sell Tomback. That's why it's separate. Tomback has nothing to do with this. Tomback is for sale. Tomback has been sold. Now it's up to the voters to decide that one way or another. But even if not, we will not put this there as far as the majority of this board is. It has nothing to do with it, because we want that to be a commercial building, an entity that could actually produce taxes for the town, which is our job. Our job is what you guys asked us for a long time ago when I first got on the board, is bring business to this town. This is what we're doing with Tomback. So that's what I'm saying. It's a separate thing, because even if this can't happen, Tomback's still sold. It
Well, I
doesn't
guess
matter. If this is too cost effective, we don't do it, and then we try to put those monies, like you said, and if we could get those monies to work in the Presbyterian church, we would love it. But that's not going to happen, because that's a church. We can't put those monies there.
So, John, like I stated before, we don't want to get into this.
Right, it has nothing to do with one or the other.
You know, we don't want to get into this whole dialogue about selling Tomback, who wants to sell Tomback. As I stated before, and it's been stated before, 3 members, which is a majority of my board. So as the supervisor of the town of Marlborough, I have to do all my due diligence to go with the majority. Like, it's just like anything else. Even though you might not like it, my majority of the board says we want to sell Tomback. So we went through all the initial things of getting the buyer, and, you know, and then it's up to the public, as you know. It's a permissible referendum. People got the signatures now, it's a mandatory. And in December the 4th, everybody, including everybody in this room that can vote, will make a decision. So
what date did you say?
I just want to make sure, I wanted to stay away from the political
So,
part.
so it's been separated from the general elections. It's separate elections?
It's
Correct.
a special election. We'll be paying for that.
It has to be because of the timing.
Okay.
And I understand your point, but I guess to me, the way I'm thinking of it, if the referendum vote says we don't want to sell it, what does that tell you from the town? What do they want to do with it? The only thing they can
Well, that's a
possibly
good question, John, because we've never got that answer in 12 years that we've owned it. And we haven't done one thing to it in 12 years.
Well, that's not fair either.
Okay.
But
Well,
it's
I
true.
don't.
Okay, are there any other?
I didn't want to get into that
Yeah.
part.
Can we get questions from the board?
I'm just going to give simple questions, and I'm going to cut the politics out of it, because frankly, I don't like politics. The building, we're talking about, first and foremost, what you're asking the school district is strictly for land, correct? There is no money involved in the
Correct.
school district. Okay. The building, we talk about the buffer, Frank spoke about the buffer we have with the neighbors. If we eat up 2.5 acres, I'm not looking behind the building, I'm looking, as I look at it, to the right of the building. How much of a buffer is left before the first house?
The back part, James? You
No,
mean,
to the side.
you mean on the main road on Crossroads?
Yes.
Oh, Phil, what would that be? That's pretty much right up on the...
We could take, I can estimate from the map, I would estimate just from the top of my mind 200 feet, 150 feet.
Okay, and have we done any studies to ensure that while there's a baseball game taking place, and whoever wants to use this community center, traffic-wise, are we going to have an issue, or even the noise level? Is there going to be an issue by putting it this close to the baseball field with any of the curricular activities we offer here?
No, not yet.
No, there's no study, or
Let me-
there's no
We haven't
issue?
done any studies yet, because we're not going to spend any more monies until we know this is even something that's even feasible.
Okay.
Right? So that's our thing, is we wanted to get you something that visually you could see. Again, we don't want to expend any more taxpayers' dollars than we have to, right? To do something that if it's not even a go, then we move on to somewhere else. That's the point why we're here, is if this isn't a go, then we move somewhere else. If it is a go, then of course, all those things have to come into play. That's something that we would normally do in any project. But we don't want to get to that point of that cost until we know that, okay, can this be feasibly done there? If it's not feasibly done there, then we might have to make another hard look at the park or some other town property, or if it's too cost effective, again, we don't do it. This is something that we're just trying to see if we can do it.
So I'm looking at, it's hard to see, but the black line all the way in the back, is that our property? Is that square you have, is that the whole? No, the farthest one back. So we go farther back. So when you guys looked at the land, because I'm looking at the house immediately, could you scroll back down for me, Mike? So I'm looking at these homes right here immediately to the right. Right by the road.
Do you have your microphone on?
Concern is the buffer between the houses and the building.
Yeah, so if we look at these two houses immediately to the right,
Yes. But I can.
well, that's
I can
your
speak-
opinion, sir.
I can speak to that.
I'm
So-
asking if you take that building and you moved it back on the property, would it afford these homes more of a buffer? Did we look at that, or is this just the only spot?
The topography gets a little more difficult as we move it back, but I can speak to that real quickly. I looked at that, and the whole concept was to actually push this building as close to the front as we can. One of the things we could do is we could stretch this parking lot this way and move things back a little bit if we were concerned. That line right there is about 20 feet long, so you're probably 200 feet from that house. So what we did was we pushed it up. There was a kind of thing, two things worked together with that. The closer we get to the fields, the more of it's a service for the school, and the farther it's away from these homes. One of the things we also had to do was one of the board members had recommended the driveway up in this area, but there's a hill there, so there's a sight distance problem. So we pushed the driveway way down. Again, that worked to keep it away from those homes, and I did not want to line the driveway up immediately across from the neighbor's driveway. So that was kind of the best place. But we're looking about 150, 200 feet of wooded area, and we could squeeze the lot down and make it longer if we wanted to concern ourselves even more with that. What happens is it goes uphill behind, and the topography gets a little more difficult. But we did set it back as far as we could before the topography starts becoming more of a challenge. So we're looking at 100 or so, 150 feet, again, 100 off the road, as well as at least 100 feet from that residence there. So it was something we considered and looked at during the layout process.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm pretty easy. If the voters say they want it, then I'm not going to pitch the fit. But as Frank said, if we put that to the vote and they say, hey, do it.
Well, I think
James,
it's more
that's
than
what
that, though, because for us, let's take out the vote and all the other points I was bringing up for a moment. I think, Frank, your point before is we need to meet with as a committee and understand what this even means. Like, if in fact we just say, yes, we're going to do it, how would we even do it? Could we do it? And then deal with some of the specifics about the building and the use of the facilities and our own requirements.
Well, and that's something where I think we need to have an extensive conversation as to what level of involvement we really should have in that part of the process. Because we're not building it, it's not our project, it's really, they're coming to us for the land.
Right.
And the reality of it is, if we decide to, whatever the lawyers tell us is the way we would do it, whether we have to transfer the land or do a long-term lease for $1, whatever our attorneys tell us is the best way.
Frank, I would just say that according to the grant process, a lease has to be, it can't be a long-time lease. This is for the member item for the 250. It could be a 10-year lease and then renewable. You could extend it every 10 years. So that's why we're asking to have the land, so we don't have to go through that process.
Okay, well, understanding what you're actually looking for, that makes a difference. You're talking about us gifting the land to the town, so that's.
Municipal agreement like we have here.
Well, no, that's.
Well, no, I think Frank's right. We're trying to say if we could get gifted the property for an exchange for what you might need in the building. Like when John was asking, how do we come, well, we didn't really know what you needed. We just kind of said, maybe this is something that you need. So if there's, that's why we said if we got to the point where it was something you were interested in, then we would have a joint meeting and say, what do you really want?
Well,
or what would it make sense to you to, what would benefit the school district and the district as a whole?
Because I think other than the concept of the bathrooms as a convenience, it's a really expensive convenience.
Correct.
And if just giving a piece of the land and only building a community center, not the gym, just doing the community center half on a single level would reduce the cost greatly.
Absolutely, Frank.
And I mean, we're functioning the way we are, and then maybe you could do it within the confines of the money you have, because none of us want to burden not only ourselves, but the taxpayers any more than absolutely possible.
Well, that's exactly it, Frank. I mean, the thing is, again, it comes down to dollars and cents.
Yep.
I think both boards are very tax conscious right now. And we're in the middle of budget right now, so we're
Okay.
very tax conscious. So I think you're right on board with that, Frank.
Okay.
You guys.
John or Tony? Susan?
I just have a couple more questions just because you're here and I'm just interested in gathering some facts. So do you have a proposal in regards to, are you thinking about this being open 7 days a week?
You know, to be honest with you, we didn't get that far, but I would think as a community center it would be. If somebody wanted to rent the community on a Sunday or a Saturday. I mean,
And I'm asking because of the things that James brought up, because if you are, then, I mean, you're talking about also nighttime, and, you know, we've had neighbors complain about lights being on X amount of time at the field. Are there going to be lights there that are actually affecting those neighbors that are immediately there?
Sue, with all due respect, as the supervisor of the town of Marlboro, I get complaints about the school all the time.
Listen, I'm sure you do. I'm just interested.
So I'm aware of that.
Because I know, you know, we've gone down this path in different areas of the town, and I'm just curious, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
knowing
those are all great questions. So I think those are the things that if we got to that point, that would come into the scheme of, do we have trees here? Do we have this type of light? Do we have a low density light? Do we have a light
then
flat?
the noise factor with the
Noise factor,
neighbors
all those things. What time is the center open to? Again, we haven't got to that point because we don't want to expend more money on looking into the studies and all the things that cost money if this isn't even a possibility yet. If it was a possibility, then obviously Phil would have a lot more work to be doing and we have to hire some more people. So, but we don't want to get to that
I think
point.
what I'm saying is, you know,
But those are
clearly you're
all things we're
envisioning this
thinking about.
plan. You're envisioning a plan, and I'm just trying to get information
Right.
from you because you're in front of us, and, you know, I'm curious what that large vision means.
They're all good questions, you know, because even if you look at it further, what we have now is not quite working as a recreational facility for the town of Marlboro. So we would have to probably have a part-time director to, you know, oversee everything, for, you know, people, appointments of who's coming in, who's going out, what kind of, you know, activities we're having. So there's a lot of thought that has to go into this, absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions from the board so we can move on with the rest?
No, I think we're good. But
Okay.
do we need to vote for?
No,
we're good.
We'll
Okay.
have further, it's legal
So,
discussion.
Frank, I just asked, do you see a time frame when you could get back to the town?
I would say by the end of the month, we'll get back to you. I mean, the reality of it is, even if it's in a positive, you know, we're not going to be looking to do anything definitive until next May.
Yeah, we understand.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we just want to see what the board's reaction to what we are presenting.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah, we just wanted to come as early as possible to explain what we were doing, because we knew this would have to go, if anything was even in the positive, it would have to go to May, at least, right? We understand that. We were all in the same type of business here, so we know that. But we wanted to make you guys aware of where we're coming at and how you felt. That's why we were here today. So you know, we appreciate that you guys let us come and explain to you and the public what we're trying to accomplish. And if we can't accomplish it, we can't, but we move on.
We got to talk about we got some things to talk about, and, you know, maybe we may have to poll our larger crew of voters to try and get a feel before we all expend a lot of money and time. There's a lot of tools out there that we can use to get community feedback to try and guide us on where we should go.
Well, once again, thank you.
No, thank you for having us.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Reynolds has his hand up. He does that at my meetings.
Yeah, but only problem, Mark, is they're just doing a presentation to us. If you'd like to talk to them afterwards, we're not going to allow the general public to ask questions, so we're gonna
Thank
move
you,
on to the
guys.
next
Thank you
part.
very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and we're going to move forward to public comment on the agenda. Public comment on the agenda. If somebody's got a comment, please go to the podium.
I have a question on the personnel. I noticed that there's a secretary being hired. As soon as I
Yes.
pull it back up. Is it a new position? A 10-month secretary, is it a new position?
It
Was it a
it was a position established last year, was not filled, and now we're finally filling it.
And where is it going?
I'm sorry?
At what building will it be at?
Right now, at the elementary school.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Please step up to the podium.
Good evening. This would be like a background question on the public presentation, if I could ask it.
Sure.
Do we know how much...
Hey, excuse me. Guys, could you hold it down in the back, please? Thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
If my memory serves me correctly, the school district purchased the parcel of property that they're discussing for this?
We haven't researched, because we haven't wanted to expend any funds with our attorneys until after the presentation. We have not done the research on all of that yet to find out the specifics.
Okay, so where would I, as a public person or as a citizen, find out how much that parcel actually cost the taxpayers to begin with when we purchased it?
Yeah, probably the business. Yeah, you can send a request to the business office, and we're obviously going to be, that's all going to be researched for discussion, but you can do a FOIL request for that purchase information right to the business office.
And in the event that you did want to sell the property, what would be the procedure that the school board has to undertake?
Well, it's as I think the biggest point we're putting forth is if the intent is to do that, that'll be up to the taxpayers. The board would put something on the ballot for the taxpayers to decide.
So that would be another referendum that would have to occur.
Yeah, the earliest
for
anything's
school
going to
district
happen from
referendum.
our end on the sale of the property would be at next May's vote. We would, if that was something we wanted to put to the voters as a whole, it would appear on next year's school budget vote. Okay. On that same day, it would be an item for people to vote on.
All right, and is the board open to any comments from the public in regards to this to help you make your decision, or is that going to be a closed
It's a little early. I think we're going to try we wanted to get information from them, and then we're going to get a focus. We'll get input from the community. We're going to find a way to get input from the community, whether it's a public hearing, which we may have to be required to have anyhow, at that time.
Okay, and just one last question. Were the board members made aware of this and have had discussion about this proposal before tonight's meeting?
Yes.
All of you were?
Yes.
Aware
of them coming to do
them
coming to do a presentation and these general documents because we get them ahead of time.
So there were no discussions as to things that were not actually agreed upon but discussed in depth?
No.
I got the impression at the town board meeting that the school board members had already been apprised of this situation and
No, there was some initial, very general dialogue that happened at the administrative level to prepare for tonight. We didn't want to have anything brought to the board until there was some formal written proposal. So I think we had maybe 2 meetings, maybe, with a couple of town board representatives administratively.
Okay.
But this is the first time that the Board of Education is hearing it.
all right, thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you. Mr. Walters.
I just want to get in the record that Mr. Corcoran made one comment that is not correct. He said the Tomvac property has never been on the tax rolls. Prior to the early 70s, it was on the tax rolls. It only became tax exempt after the ambulance corps bought it and put their building up.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Yep.
Good evening. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to try to make this
as quick as possible.
Is
'cause-
it about an agenda item?
Yes, it is. It's about my daughter who's type 1 diabetic.
Okay, that's not an agenda item, so
No.
you'll have to just wait till the regular public comment period at the end?
Oh, I'll have to wait till the end?
Sorry.
No, please, I apologize.
Not a problem. Any other public comments on the agenda?
I do have one more, Julianne Reed. We're just saying about the Tomback building and selling the property or giving the town. I do remember when we did vote it in as a community to buy it, to put the business offices there and build on it. Right now, it's being used for cross-county, cross-country track,
Yeah.
I believe. So again, the taxpayers did pay for it, and
It's
you're
not-
saying by
Joanne-
May that
Joanne-
you'd be able to come
Joanne,
up.
it's not a public, that's not an agenda item.
Correct.
So we're just doing comments on the agenda items right
Okay.
now. Thank you. Any other comments on the agenda items? Okay. Move on to consent agenda. And we're gonna have to do part of this manually, okay? Susan's computer's still not working. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of Superintendent of Schools, approve the contracts, agreements, and reports as presented. Personnel recommendations, unofficial meeting minutes of 9/2018, donations, budget transfers, Discovery Ed contract. Can I have a motion? James, second. Susan. Any discussion? Please vote.
Yes.
Yes.
I'd like to introduce a new staff member that was just hired. She's here with us tonight as a special education teacher. Mallory Sanzari graduated from Stonehill College with a bachelor's and is certified in special education. In our conversation early on when she was interviewing for this process, really her passion for special education came out early in her childhood too, which is kind of a nice little genesis of where you've now landed your first job and working with us here in Marlboro, so welcome to Marlboro.
Okay, refund credit real property tax. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, approves the application from Ulster County Office of Real Property Tax Services for corrected tax roll for 2015, 16, and 17 years for the Town of Marlboro property owned by Marcy and Jason Hoffman, located at 118 Highland Avenue, SBL number 108-4-6-51, and to issue refund in the amount of $21.02 due to the omission of an ag exemption. Can I have a motion? James, second. John. Any discussion? Please vote.
Yes.
Old business? Does anybody have any old business? Any new business? Okay. Any other items?
I just have something for Matt. On your report, you mentioned about the survey, and the one that came out, 50% or so, was that students didn't really think they were represented or their issues covered. I forget the exact words you used. And that kind of ties into, in my mind, it tied into the other discussion about trying to look at better means of electing representatives. But the things that comes into my mind is, do you think from the information you got that students know how to bring their issues or their questions forward, especially like high school and middle school? Like, do they know that the student government might be the spot where you would do that and represent them, or even like yourself as a school board member? Just thinking if you got any insight out of that, and if maybe in your committee you're creating, or the group the students are creating, if maybe some kind of general education would be another means for trying to expand upon maybe people even knowing what to do and coming forward.
Yeah, that's certainly an issue. That's definitely, I think, definitely a lot of kids, especially kids at the middle school level or younger kids, definitely don't know their outlets for certain things. Meanwhile, like some older kids definitely do. Some choose not to use them, like they don't really care. But that's why, in addition to the survey I sent out, I tried to send out an introductory email to let students know that, hey, I am your student representative. I am here for all issues. And so I'm starting to see through the surveys that kids are finding these outlets. I know not only me, but people have started to come to like Student Senate and other outlets for to try to profess their issues. And I'm hoping that once I get this announcement out there for the panel, we're going to see more students come.
Well, I want to say I think it's a great initiative on your part and whoever else was helping you. I think it's, especially with all the other efforts to get more people involved in anything, right? Sports, activities, the whole belonging measurement, right? Feeling of belonging that's going on in middle school, all of that ties together. So great job in getting that started. We'd be curious to hear the outcome of all that when you progress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other items?
Have we decided if anyone from the board will be representing us at
No, at NISBA.
at NISBA?
We'll be down at the law conference. I'll be at the law conference, the pre-law conference. Yeah, I don't think
I
anybody
can't
else
do it
was-
at the time that that's being held.
I can't go this year. I'm leaving tomorrow as it is.
How about the BOCES?
Yeah, the tech BOCES?
The representation for the board. Yeah.
Yeah, nobody had responded back that they were interested in trying to, I mean, obviously, they're going to pick somebody from one of those multitudes of districts.
Yeah.
We haven't seen a response back as to how many districts put in for it.
But no one from here?
No. Okay. Recognition of district residents and others.
Good evening, once again. Well, my name is Eric Santana. I am the father of Grace Santana. She's in the 6th grade. She is type 1 diabetic. And it's a very long story from first day of kindergarten. She was diagnosed on her first day of kindergarten. And it's been pure hell with the Marlboro School District, from denying my daughter services right from the get-go, discriminating and segregating my daughter. So there's not one day that goes by that it's been easy, not only on ourselves and our family. This is not cancer. This is not chemotherapy. It's worse. This is something that is chronic. There's no cure. With chemo, you can probably get cancer-free. She's type 1 diabetic for the rest of her life. She's insulin dependent for the rest of her life. She can die at any second. Her blood sugars can rise, and her A1Cs it'll kill her. She can go to as low as 30, and she can have cardiac arrest within minutes. She can die. We are her external pancreas. We give her insulin each and every single day, more than 2 hours a day. We check her blood sugar more than 50 times a day. I want to show you.
Mr. Santana, just so you're aware, obviously.
Okay,
you've
so
been
to
before
fast
us-
forward, to
no, no,
fast forward.
You've been before us before.
Yeah,
you
but
only have
it's-
a minute and 18 seconds, so I just want you to, if you could get.
Okay,
to
so
where
the reason
point
why
is
we're
today.
here is because we have a one-on-one aid since the beginning of the first grade, kindergarten, all the way to 6th grade. This woman knows exactly everything there is. It took a long time to get her to where she knows all of the symptoms, everything about my daughter. It took years, even us as parents, to understand what type 1 diabetic and diabetes is all about. They took her one-on-one aid away from my daughter and put a brand new one-on-one aid to my daughter. I'm not saying that the 504 plan, they give us the services. They did. I'm not here to fight the services. I'm here to fight the fact that it doesn't make any sense to taking her one-on-one aid, the only person that knows her as much as, well, not as well as us, but when you put her in a new environment, a new school system, like the 6th grade, her blood sugars are low, it's stressful. There's not one person in that school that knows my daughter but her one-on-one aid. The nurse, no matter if you may think that she's trained, she's not trained. She has never seen a pen needle. Pen needle is where you give her insulin. My wife had to personally went in there for hours to show her.
Okay, Mr. Santana.
Okay,
Have you,
so
the question I would have to the board, have you spoken to the superintendent?
absolutely, and what he says is that they were going to train the new one-on-one aide, and they're going to train her for and they gave us 2 weeks. Hold on, this is the most important part. They gave us 2 weeks for the one-on-one aide, our one-on-one aide, to train the new one-on-one aide. 2 weeks, 14 days, when as parents who I see my daughter each and every day, and you're going to think that 14 days is enough to be training a type 1 diabetic with all of the symptoms. It's unfair, it's wrong, and on top of that, I want you to know something, that type 1 diabetic, the new one-on-one aide, she also is one-on-one aide for another child.
Okay.
That's at the beginning of this.
Santana,
That's the beginning of this, and she is
Under
actually with an
the
autistic
rules,
child.
Under the procedures, have you filed an appeal for the determination with the district?
We're going to file, the reason we had to pull, we're going to do that. But the thing is, they even told us it's not even, there's no sense. We're not changing anything. And the point is, 14 days is how can you do that? One second, when we're trying to transition our daughter to be independent. We don't even want a one-on-one aid. Let me just finish. We don't even want a one-on-one aid at all. We want our daughter to be independent. The only way that my daughter could be independent is by having this old one-on-one aid that knows her as well for 6 years, for 5.5 years. You cannot tell me that you can put a brand new one-on-one aid and train her for 14 days and expect that this one-on-one aid is going to be able to understand the symptoms.
Mr. Santana, your time has expired, and you need to follow the procedure for filing an appeal. We, as the board, cannot...
At this time, sir, she's not in school because it's an unsafe environment. You cannot put a one-on-one aid and train her in 14 days. It took us years to understand what this is about, and it's wrong, and we had to pull our daughter out. Another thing is, there's 3 type 1 diabetics there. One with an LPN, one with an LPN. The other one, then you guys denied the other one, and she's Spanish, and I'm Spanish. The other one who has a one-on-one aide, who's an LPN, she has an LPN, which you guys denied. We don't even have never had a one-on-one aide who was supposed to be an LPN. You denied that. This other girl who's Caucasian, she's got an LPN right now.
We're not going to allow this to continue.
This is wrong what they're doing to my daughter. 14 days. There's no way that you could do that. This is wrong. This is discrimination.
Please be seated.
This is racism because there's another one over there at the school
seated.
who has an LPN. We don't even have an LPN. And the other girl who's Spanish,
please
they
follow.
denied a one-on-one aid.
Please follow the procedure.
This is wrong what they're doing. This is wrong. 14 days is not good enough.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments from the community?
Justice for racism. This is wrong.
You have the right up for me.
14 days. They take 14 days.
I'm Catherine Sariello, Marlboro. I know we're nowhere near having the conversation given the presentation just happened today, but I know that we just did a security audit and placing a community center that may or may not be open, we don't even know, right, that abuts the school system, or the school, on that road, which isn't nearly wide enough to handle the traffic it has. is a concern. How is that going to affect our safety protocols? I know Mr. Lawler worked diligently in rearranging where the students park, so there's one point of entrance. Now you're going to have somebody basically on our property. It may not be our property anymore, depending on what happens, but it's going to be right there. How are you going to monitor that, and how is that going to improve our safety situation? Just something to think about as you go forward.
Thank you. Any other district residents? Okay, no action after, right? Okay. So we do have a proposed executive session tonight to discuss the employment history of a particular person and proposed acquisition, sale, or lease of real property. Excuse me? No action after. Motion to adjourn, or enter into exec, I should say. Tony, second. Susan.